At it full boat today in the library, Athlete Builder. I'm your host, Jim Beebe, with my teammate, Lucas Lorian. Today we have a legend from Indiana, one of the top, easy for me to say, one of the top percentile, strongest men ever, Chad Coy. Hails from Indiana, now lives in Michigan. You know what's interesting about Chad, just to get off right off the bat, competed at a high level, the highest level in strongman, powerlifting, etc. But, all in, he gets these kids and these adults stronger for sure. But it's no stretch to say he's even better at getting people fast. So he's with the Parisi Speed School. He's been a master coach there for a number of years. Been elevated, now he's on the corporate team. Been born and raised in Indiana. What I have here for his bio, he didn't put this in here, but he's one of five boys, the youngest. Went to Purdue, exercise science degree, walked on, played football there, then 9 years semi-pro football, transitioned into strongman and powerlifting, competed at the world's strongest man stage, has American and international records in powerlifting. He's won at the master's level, one of the strongest guys, but also one of the nicest, most giving guys. If you name anyone else in the strength world, this guy probably knows them, has worked with them, competed against them, or helped build them. So we're lucky to have Chad Coy on the show today. Chad, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. A lot of those accolades I appreciate. As a walk-on at Purdue, you're a walk-on. There's a difference between playing and walking on. So just always want to make sure we clarify that.
Well, walking on, you still got to be on the team and make it, and then start working your way up the depth chart, right?
I walked on and got the opportunity to stay and coach, and I think that's really what my passion was really coaching. So I got to stay, and I gave 2 years as an assistant there for Purdue football, and it was just a blast. I learned a lot. Steve Little was my boss. Trent Greener was the assistant, graduate assistant at the time. So just great people, great history, just a great place to go to school.
It's interesting. I was having this discussion with some other coaches, and then my older son, Jack. And part of my story is that I always wanted to play sports, and then have a lot of opportunities, and then didn't make it myself, and didn't know what I was doing, no real guidance, and then always wanted that, didn't really get it, and it translated to a whole different career, blah, blah, blah. Then I ended up circling back to getting into CrossFit, powerlifting, strongman, coaching people, and then what we're doing now with me and Lucas. Just because you have this preconceived notion of what your path should be, it's not always the case. And then if you can find where you really fit in this world and then make an impact, that's really even more, honestly more important. Just because I want to do this or that, but my calling ended up being something different. Like Lucas would love to play in the league, I would say. But I think, 5'7", right? 5'9"?
5'7" don't make it.
Right. So even though he had all these records in high school and played college, sometimes you're built for it, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you have the work ethic, sometimes you don't. And I think with all three of us, there's a desire and ability, but had a different calling. So the fact that you figured that out and you spent the next 3+ decades making an impact, it's just way more valuable.
I just look for myself, like my passion really was because in high school, I had great coaches. They were great coaches. They taught me a lot about life, but they didn't know anything about really about eligibility. They didn't know anything about recruiting. I got all kinds of offers to play at small schools, but I was the first person in my family to go to college and graduate from college. So it was one that I didn't know anything. And my girlfriend's parents were like, go to Purdue. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go to Purdue. I should have went and played small ball and played. I thought I had 5 years to play for. I walked on. When I walked on, it's like I had, 3 semesters of eligibility left. So Chester Caddis kind of looked at me and goes, unless you're Lawrence F. and Taylor, you're never going to see the field. I'm like, okay, well, why are you here? I said, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. So I did my walk-on stint and then, went down to Coach Reeder and worked for Russ and then for Steve Little. So it was just it was a great opportunity to get in there and coach and then just learn from a D1 strength coach.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you're the youngest of 5 and the next youngest brother is still 5 years older, right?
Yeah.
And you still got 3 more ahead of you. And I was listening to your recording with Brian Shaw, and it's no stretch to say there was plenty of beatings that took place. There's probably more to it that you probably didn't even get into, which I don't even know. And then if you go from there to a walk-on, like in both instances, you're in this constant fight. You're in this fight with just to protect yourself at home and toughen up. Then you have to prove yourself in school and in college, so you're in this constant fight. That one component alone, where you just don't give up and keep going forward, making little incremental improvements, you need much more than that to be successful, right? If you have that built in your DNA by the time you're 20, just add a little bit of education and you just keep going forward, don't you?
Yeah. Quitting was never an option. I mean, you had asked for some funny stories, so I'll just go ahead and kind of go into it just because it's right point on point. I wanted to play tackle football, so I got signed up for PAL football. I was drafted. My favorite team growing up was the Green Bay Packers, so I was drafted by the Tribune Packers for Kokomo PAL football. And Coach Gentry was a Vietnam vet, just tough guy, was my coach. But like I remember, the first day we got pads, and Rob Patchett, I think he's coaching over at Taylor High School now. It was Rob Patchett and Pat Christie. I just remember they were 12 years old and I was 10. And I just got my butt thumped all practice, that first practice, come walking off the field. And I got tears in my eyes. I'm beat up. My mom's like, looks at me. She goes, "What's wrong with you?" I go, and I kind of sniffled and talked. She goes, "Don't be a little cunt. Get in the car. You asked for this." So I laughingly say, when I say hashtag, like I'll hashtag DBAC, which is don't be a cunt. And that's what my mom said. So my mom, and you got to think, my mom was the first woman to work in a tool and die shop in 1963. So she's one woman and 30 dudes. So she was pretty tough.
Mm.
That's my kids were like, never mess with grandma. She will whip your ass. I'm like, you are absolutely correct. That she wouldn't spank you. She just punch you.
Mm.
So it was a little different. I mean, just growing up with that, and and then like you said, being the youngest of 5, it was daily butt whooping for a long time. And my brother put me in the hospital a couple times. And the last time, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's like there's a nice scar here on my forearm. Arm went through a window, about lost my arm. So doctors told me I'd never play baseball again, never play football again, wouldn't be able to lift weights again. 6 weeks after the surgery, I played baseball with a lefty's glove, 20 at Easton. That fall, I played football. I've gained my strength back in my hands. So, I just, no's never been a stopper for me. You can't do it. Really? Watch me. I'll do everything I can to do it. So I think that's prevailed in my business. That's prevailed as a coach. It's prevailed as an athlete.
How about your brothers? Do they amount to much playing sports or no? Or are you the only one then?
No, my 3 older brothers from my dad's first marriage. My brother Sam was killed in a car accident in 1974.
Mm.
Monty was never really an athlete, but my oldest brother Terry was a taekwondo black belt, won a lot of tournaments and fought a lot. My brother Trent played tennis. Like Lucas, he was 5'7". He was a good athlete, but he wasn't. He never went anywhere. So no, I was probably I always laugh. Say they saved the best for last.
Clearly. And then, so Kokomo, Indiana, right?
Yep.
You finish at Purdue. What happens next?
Graduated in 91. I'd actually applied for the graduate assistantship. They gave it to a guy named I always jokingly refer to him as Mr. Smith. He was a defensive back there, so he stayed on and got his master's. I couldn't afford school anymore, so I got kicked out and went to work for a company called Palco Distributing, which was a supplement distributor. I'd worked for a doctor in college. He was Dr. Thayer's Nutrition Center. So I took a job with Palco, and my job was really to travel around the Midwest, dealing with gyms and health food stores and talking about sports nutrition. So I took that job I graduated in 91. I took that job in 92 and worked for Jim Palco and Debbie Palco. Probably the biggest influence in my life as far as an employer. Great people, just incredible people. Taught me how to be really just taught me how to manage people. Taught me how to be a good person and take care of people. mean, they gave me $5,000 to buy my first house. They gave me $50,000 to open my first gym. So I always wanted to be a boss like them. So I always figured if I took care of my people, they'd take care of my business. It's for 30 years, it's been that way.
Wow. It's no stretch to say that company's been successful, right? Where did you open?
Yes,
Where did you open your first gym?
Well, technically, I bought my first gym when I was 15 because I wanted to have my own place to train. So, we had an apple orchard, so I took all my money that I worked my ass off for 3 years and bought my first gym. Now, my first gym I ever trained at was a Nautilus Center. My mom took me there, and then I read the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, which is, that's a whole nother discussion right there. But I bought this gym. It had a squat rack, a leg press, incline bench, bars, dumbbells, plates, and I put it in the cold. It was basically like a cold area for apples in our store. My parents owned a convenience store as well as working at Delco. So I put it back there and started training there, and then kind of grew out of that. Needed more equipment, so I got a gym membership at the YMCA in Kokomo.
Gotcha.
Met a lot of interesting guys up there. The '80s was a different time.
Right. So you went from Nautilus though. What I wrote down is that you started lifting maybe age 12. Is that right?
What's funny because we always laugh on who inspires you. I remember seeing Bill Kazmaier on TV at World's Strongest Man was on Wide World of Sports, and then I saw the movie Conan the Barbarian in the spring of 1980.
Classic.
And I told Mom I want to look like that.
Yeah, me too. She's
like, well, you working out till you're 12. So when I was 12, what do you want for your birthday? I said, I want to go to the gym. So my mom would take me to the Nautilus Center. And, if you understand Nautilus, it's one set to failure, 12, whatever, I think it was 12 machines. And you did one set to failure, but you could only train every other day. And they were pretty stringent. Like I would try to come in 2 days in a row. No, you got to go home. So I did that for about 2.5 years. And it was a good base. I mean, I high intensity training. There's some validity there. I mean, train to failure, there's some validity. It just there wasn't enough volume, and we were using machines. So I just when I saw I read the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, and I want to use a barbell. So that's when I bought the gym right before. I guess that would have been before my sophomore year in high school. I'd had my injury that year. And I said I wanted to have the gym. And I wanted to be able to train when I wanted to be able to train. I couldn't drive yet, so I was like, but I could walk across the street to the store. Or once we put it in the basement, I could go to the basement whenever I wanted.
Did you have anyone else there training with you?
Yeah, I was real smart because I was training like double splits and wasn't eating enough, and I was training too much. But man, I was trying, but I was reading the wrong material.
Sure.
I was reading bodybuilding magazines, Flex and Muscle and Fitness, and I call it Muscle and Fantasy now. But it was just trial and error.
Sure. Then Purdue helped out a little bit with the knowledge component.
I met a lot of interesting folks along the way, so I learned a lot. So still never got totally away from high intensity training. I read Ellington Darden's book, and Darden and Arthur Jones. I love the hammer stuff, and then just kept reading. I mean, my biggest thing was just a voracious reader. What could work and what could not work.
I also wrote that down that I think similar to me, in grade school growing up, like I hated when they were calling you in class to read, and I would get nervous. I could just feel the heat rising up my face, and then every word came out like Porky Pig with all the stuttering. You mentioned that too. You said your way you got through that though was through constantly reading.
Well, I might have to run and get another charger. This phone's wonky. You know why? I was diagnosed with reading disabled. So in the 80s, I guess I've been in the 70s. I was reading disabled. I couldn't read, so I had to go to special classes. So back then kids were pretty mean. That's why I really have a hard time with bullies. Getting called retard, and stupid. Chad's going to retard class. So that really, I think, as a young age, that kind of affects you a little bit. But In fourth grade, I was taken to the. I mean, I was reading. I was taken to the bookmobile, and I got books, and I started reading. You know, and I'll agree again. You're a kid, so you kind of gravitate to. I mean, my first book I ever read by myself was Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which led me down to a lot of Burroughs stuff, and then Robert E. Howard, and Michael Moorcock, and just I voraciously read everything that was sci-fi or fantasy, and watched that genre. You know, The Lord of the Rings, Tales of Narnia. All that stuff really impacted me significantly.
So now you have more diversity, and you kind of like fumble and learn your way through, and say there's not this big blueprint on how to do things. There's not this great blueprint on how to get strong. There's not this great blueprint on how to read or not stutter as much as in a great blueprint on how to be a walk-on. That kind of sets the tone where now you're in your mid-20s and you're like, get the fuck out of my way now. I'm ready, right? So how do you...
I just met some really cool people along the way. I took that job with Palco. Was on the road a lot, traveling to gyms. I met a guy named Greg Gordon, and I'm friends with Greg and Buffy. To this day, I train their son-in-law and their daughter-in-law, and their daughter. I always blame it on Greg. He got me into powerlifting because I was squatting one day. He goes, dude, you should powerlift. I go, what's that? He goes, what? You don't know what powerlifting is? I go, hell, I don't know what powerlifting is. Is that a sport? I was just at bodybuilding so I could squat, and I stiff-legged deadlift. I'd never even done a conventional deadlift till I was like, 23?
Wow.
So I started deadlifting. So I did my first powerlifting meet in, gotta have been 93.
Wow.
93. I took that job in 92, met Greg in 92, talked me into powerlifting, did my first state meet, the Indiana State meet with NASA. And then the rest was history from there. It's like, I didn't realize you had to peak for them. So I did like 10 meets in like, I did like 10 meets in like 16 weeks.
Jeez.
I didn't know you were supposed to take time off in between. I was real smart, dude.
Oh my goodness. Got to break most.
Yeah.
All right. So just for context, then, those that don't know, or you're what, 55 now, and you competed back then. What were you at your heaviest weight?
278 is my heaviest weight ever.
And your height?
Well, that's generous. I was 6 foot, but now I'm 5'11". I'm losing some inches as I get older.
Yeah, the vertebrae. So
now I laughingly say that because I got my first time I got insurance. The lady measured me and she goes, I was 5'11 and 3/4 with no shoes on. So I'm 6 feet in shoes. But I was like, I'm not, ma'am, I've been 5'10" since I graduated high school. So, honey, you're 5'11 and 3/4. So I gained 1 inch and 3/4 in college. So
there you go.
I'll take it. I just had a physical recently. It was 5'11.
Okay.
So I lost that 3/4 inch.
Ah, shit, that happened. So for context, squat, bench, deadlift, powerlifting numbers. What were you looking at back in the day, or when you're at your strength?
My best meet lifts 771 squat, a 420 bench, and a 710 deadlift. When I was powerful.
Gotcha. And then you went on to strongman. What's the most weight you put over your head then?
400 pounds in an axle press.
Painful. Log press?
Best log 360. Best log in training 360. Best log in a contest is 350.
How about
what you do in training doesn't count?
No, well, it's nice to do, and you need to do it to help prepare, but it doesn't matter on game day, right? How about like a carry, like a farmer's carry or a frame carry?
Well, I carried 400 pounds, just not real far. That was at a what was it? World Strongman Super Series. We had like a 400-pound farmers per hand. I think it was a 20-meter course. I ended up taking about 12 meters maybe.
Sure. And then my favorite event, stones.
What's that?
My favorite event is stones. What's the number there for you?
I've loaded a 440. Heaviest load stone in a run is like 405. So that's back when it was like 265, 290, 315, 365, 400. So now I did load a 365 in America's Strongest Man 2008, I think. It was a max height. So it was like I loaded 365. So I got third place in America's Strongest Man loading a stone. but I was wearing, I call them kiss boots. Lucas might remember them as Spice Girl boots, but
Right.
Jim, you're old enough to remember.
Oh yeah.
Gene Simmons and Kiss.
You just don't have the long tongue to prove it.
No, I don't. That's true.
So,
That's true. Guys, do this. I'm going to run up and grab my other charger because I'm afraid my phone's going to die. I don't want that.
okay,
Give me 30 seconds.
got it. Chad, I was going to ask some of these questions later, but in the different strength sports, just kind of learn a little bit about you. Is there like a favorite event of yours or a favorite contest? So the contest is all the events, but is there a favorite, like I like doing stones or medleys or whatever? And then is there a favorite like actual event you like to go to? And
well, I mean, I always preferred medleys because it allowed me to because I was more of an athlete, So I love doing medleys or something loading. That was always my forte because I was fast.
mm-hmm.
As I've gotten older, you lose speed, not as explosive. Now I love strict pressing because I'm actually really good at it. I've had some knee issues in the last couple of years, so haven't been able to push press or push jerk like I used to. So I like those. Probably my favorite two contests, the North Americans but that's a phenomenal show. Hugo used to put it on. Now it's JF Carone. So it's a phenomenal show. And then Ultimate Strongman Masters Worlds in Belfast. I mean, Glenn always took good care of us. Did a show down in Bogota, Colombia. That was phenomenal. I've been blessed to be able to travel all over the world and do some really cool shows. I don't know. Probably my all-time favorite is the All Nations in Saint Martin. We did 3 contests in 5 days. Yeah, so you team contests, but you're still pretty whooped after 5 days. That was a lot of fun, though. I really enjoyed that time in that contest.
How about like historically? You watch some of the specials that Rogue puts out on Full Striker or the Manhood Stones or Highland Games. Is there a on the planet a historical feat of strength that you like, whether it's the Husafell or the Denny Stones, anything like that?
I've always wanted to go. I mean, Magnus has invited me to Iceland so many times, but I just never can make it work in my schedule. I'd love to go there and just give a crack at the Husafell Stones.
Yeah.
I just don't know if anymore, like where I'm at with my age, I don't know if I could pick it up anymore.
Sure.
It used to be like that wasn't a big deal. Now it's kind of a big deal. So
sure is. Yeah.
But that would be a cool thing to do
for sure. But there's the having fun, there's the competing, there's your feeding that athlete side to you. But then there's the professional side where you're running a gym, your own gym, or at the Parisi School. So talk a little bit more about your career with Parisi and what are they all about? So if you don't know Parisi, what are they about and how do you fit at that organization?
Well, Bill Parisi was a phenomenal collegiate athlete, 2-time All-American javelin thrower. His dream was to make the Olympics. He didn't make it. And that's kind of what I think of all of us. We don't make something, and that spurs us to help other people. So he opened the first Parisi Speed School in 1992. In 2003, they went ahead to franchising. I learned about him in 2005 and bought the 13th franchise in 2006 and opened it in Kokomo, Indiana. Parisi is a youth-based performance company that focuses on movement, whether that's linear speed broken down to acceleration or top speed mechanics or multi-directional speed, and then as well as strength. So they really focus on the development of an athlete. Really, how do you build an athlete? How do you build a young athlete? How do you edify an athlete? It's all about. I always laugh because I always thought the name should be the Parisi School of Self-Confidence and Self-Esteem, but kids wouldn't get excited about that.
Sure.
What kids get excited about is speed. So we understand. I mean, speed is the most debilitating thing on the field. If you've got it, you're doing great. If you don't, you got some problems. And when I was in high school, I ran a 4.940. Granted, that was a handheld 4.940 too. So as a $180 running a 4.9, speed. You can't be fast. I mean, you're either born fast or you're not. I think the difference with Parisi talks is speed's a skill. So we teach it as a skill, just like strength is a skill, just like agility is a skill, just like shooting is a skill. And you can hone that skill and become better. So I think over time, I didn't know what I didn't know. I got stronger. I mean, stronger is a huge portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had I played an all-star game in Las Vegas, ran sometimes, had an NFL combine day. You know, I ran a 4.67 40. I had a 4.2 pro agility. This is on grass. 4.2 pro agility. You know, I had a 32-inch vertical. Had a 9.9 broad jump. You know, they're coming down the line. So how old are you? How old are you? I was like, well, I'm 29. Next, that was there was my shot.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a great opportunity. I enjoyed it, but then as my kids started to get older, I just saw the disparity in what my kids were getting compared to what they were getting at school, the training times. So that's really why I got it. I started looking at, well, I want to do this. I want to help kids. And because we'd been open the gym in '95, so anytime a kid would walk through the door, I'd train them. I just find a way to train because, like, I wanted them to have the opportunities that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was important to me. And then when I saw Parisi, I'm like, this is the ticket. And buying the Parisi Speed School franchise was probably one of the paramount points in my life because it really changed the trajectory of my life. I got into coaching. And God, I don't want to do anything different, man. I mean, I want to see people live their dreams. And, so I've always coached, but like now it's like, when I became Parisi, I really felt this is my calling in life, is to help athletes. And really it's to help people believe in themselves, and they can do anything once they believe in themselves. And I think that's really where my focus has been since 2005. And just anytime we can help kids. I mean, I look at it, people, how many kids have you turned? Hell, I don't know. I mean, 300 kids played college sports. I've 25 guys that I've coached have become professional athletes. I said, but more important than that, I've got doctors and lawyers and accountants and successful business people. And the crazy thing is, like, 17 of my former athletes and or coaches own their own facilities now. That's the legacy that I want to leave. That they see it and they want to do the same thing. They want to help more kids. And then really that's what it's about. It's like I just see these kids, and kids have changed, and the world has changed. I don't think so much kids have changed. I think parents have changed. I think we've softened a bit. I would like to think that myself as kind of an old school coach. Give kids that level of expectation to become excellent, and they'll become excellent. If you tell them average is good, then they'll just be average. I just think, personally, I think an average income sucks. I think an average marriage sucks. I think average just sucks. So just be honest with kids and let's become excellent. Now, what's that mean to each kid? Hell, making your team might be the best thing you ever did.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather do that 1,000 times, 10,000 times. The kid that gets the contract, great. The kid that plays college sports, awesome. One of my kids came back at Christmas. He's one of the first kids I met when I moved to Columbia, Missouri, and just a great kid. His name's Jalen Logan Redding. Jalen came in. I evaluated him. I told his mom, I said, I've only initial evals probably, maybe 100 kids in my life that could go D1. And I said, your son could play in the league. Crazy thing is, Jalen got a brown shirt his COVID year, got a red shirt. He's played 2 years, just graduated from the University of Minnesota, staying on to get his master's degree. He's going to graduate the MBA. And, he got me tickets to the Michigan-Minnesota game on the 28th of September. I can't wait to go. I'm going to be sporting. I mean, it's going to be crazy. It's a boiler. I'm going to be sporting some maroon and gold. I'm going to be probably wearing a Minnesota jersey to the game. So we'll see if I survive that game. We'll find out. But he came back from his bowl game this year and brought me his jersey, man. And I was just saying, Coach, I would never be here without you. I'm like, I don't know, dude. You're a talented athlete. You're a great kid. One of the hardest working kids I've ever met. But just humble and kind. And the thing of him, what was he going to? He'll probably play in the NFL. But he's going to be successful at whatever he does. And that's really what I look at. It's like I just want to see the kids become successful, live the life that they want to live. And along the way, teach them a few things of just hard work, perseverance. What's the option of quitting? You just don't quit.
Right.
You can't win if you don't. If you quit, you can't win. But if you don't quit, who knows what's going to happen?
That's right.
And that kid's going to be a superstar. And the funny thing is, I can say that another 1,000 times with the kids that I've coached. So
a lot of takeaways from that, and I love it. And you'll hear the coaches say, well, I'm trying to teach these kids, so they can do well on their sport, but also apply it to the game of life. And people are like, yeah. I'm like, you stop and think about that. The percentage is so small if you play in varsity, and it's even smaller to play in college. It's even smaller to play pro. So it's all about applying it to the kids so they can apply the same practices, habits, and principles at life. So I'm talking to this kiddies that walk on it in college, and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to work with you so that you are relentless at learning the playbook. You're relentless at doing the extra mobility stuff. You're doing all the extra little things because you have to do all the extra little things to get where some other people already are. And he's like, well, why do you keep hammering me on this? I said, well, are you going to start this year or even next year? And he said, well, I don't know, maybe. Well, do you think you're playing pro? He goes, probably not if I had to guess. I said, okay, so if you learn to be relentless in everything and all aspects of your profession, and right now you're a student athlete, so you have to be relentless in your schoolwork and also on the field. And then you graduate, and then you're at a job and there's layoffs, or your wife has cancer, or you go through a divorce, or a kid dies, or you have these problems. If you're not relentless in applying everything you can do to get better or fix the situation, then you don't have that ability and that skill and that memory to fall back on and apply later. But if your standard is whatever you're doing, you're just simply relentless in all components, mentally and physically, whatever adversity you see, that's all you know. So then you just apply it later, so that if you don't learn it now, you're never going to learn it, and you're just going to get beat bad later. And he goes, oh,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't think like that. I said, yeah, that's kind of the thing, buddy.
Well, it's funny when parents bring their kids to Parisi, again, always married for different reasons. I'm very frank and upfront. I'm like, hey, guys, here we have 4 pillars of success, and that's respect, coachability, work ethic, and effort. If you master, that's what the athlete can master. If you do those things, you're going to be successful in life. I also tell them, like, our job, you're a student athlete, so studies come first. But I've never shied away from God, family, job. I mean, you're God first, family, and your job. Your job's a student. Don't put athletics in front of being a student, because the student is going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to be able to continue to learn. I say, but athletics will end. So we teach that every day, and then we look at the kids and we teach to compete every day. So we teach to compete. This world, everyone's a champion. No, there's one champion. There's everybody else.
Right.
So we teach our kids to compete. When we win, everyone's grateful and thankful and humble. And then we always ask ourselves, what could you have done better? Make them accountable. It's not the coach's fault. It's not mom and dad's fault. It's not the ref's fault. What could you have done better? And invariably, what it teaches the kids to be introspective and look at, what could I have done better? Did I put forth the effort? Were my mechanics there? Why did I not put forth the effort to win?
Right.
So then they start to see that, then they can correct it. They auto correct. And I think that's one thing we don't teach a lot in our society anymore. It's just hold yourself accountable to a higher standard and auto correct your own crap. Everyone wants to, blame it on the coach or blame it on the rest. What did you do? And I think when kids start to look at what could you have done, well, you know what? It was 3rd down and I didn't put forth my efforts. Like when I talk to football guys, it's 6 seconds. Give 100% effort for 6 seconds. You're going to rest for 30. But 6 seconds, give 100% effort. Now, if the other guy's just better than you, whips your ass, that's a problem. There you go. We can't deal with that. But if it's lack of effort, and if you play 100 downs in a football game, and you give 100% effort on 100 downs, you have no regrets.
Right.
I think that's one. Vince Lombardi said, if what you did yesterday still looks big in your eyes, you haven't done much today. I took that to heart. Like, what did you do today?
Yeah.
Were you excellent today? Were you excellent on that rep? Like when I'm training, is that excellent rep? Or I teach my athletes to look at the rep itself. How did that rep feel? How did that set feel? How did the whole workout feel? And then how can you auto-regulate that to make yourself better?
So talking to this other kid, I totally agree there. And to your point, I asked him, hey, because he was getting mad about getting beat in this one strong side set. He plays linebacker. And I go, well, what happened on this play? He goes, well, my outside linebacker was out of position, and then it opened us up and we were exposed and we got hurt. We got gash on that play for a whole bunch of yards. And I said, did you know that? Did you see that before the play occurred? Did you know? He goes, Yeah, but I figured he would figure it out. You just kind of guessed that your teammate was in the right position and he wasn't, but you knew. So when I say what could you have done differently, because it wasn't necessarily that he wasn't the other guy was supposed to be in position to make the play, but he wasn't. I said, but you knew. So get him in position. He's your teammate. Get him in position. That's
Right.
the part you have to own, that you knew this piece and he didn't. So if you would have moved him and adjusted him over for that audible, you'd have been fine. And he's like, yeah. So when you're thinking you're being cheated or this life is happening or you're not getting the reps or the playing time, you're like, why is this happening to me? We had Dr. Taryn on and she goes, ask this question. Why is this happening for me? Why is this adversity happening for me? Why am I constantly getting beat here? Why am I constantly getting injured? Why am I not playing? Why is this happening for me? And you can start answering these questions. It makes you be introspective. And then you can start saying, oh, I need to make some adjustments. And you own everything.
Yeah.
Like Jocko would say, extreme ownership. If you own everything, then you got a shot of evolving and advancing. And if you don't take that approach, then you're just stuck there wondering, well, I don't know. Life just happens to me. No, that's not exactly the case. There's a dynamic I want to get into between you and Lucas. And so the challenge in that, I run a gym, you have run gyms. Well, Lucas is a strength coach at a high school. So most of those athletes will train at the high school. Some will seek outside help. Some schools have relationships with outside help. Other schools hate outside help. So Lucas, what's your perspective on that? And then Chad, I'm going to ask, how do you work to form a relationship with other schools? Because you're working with kids. Kids are in schools. I know you work with high school kids too. So talk about that, you guys. We'll start with Lucas.
Yeah, for me, obviously, I'm in the high school setting, so not only do I deal with the kids on a daily basis, but I also deal with coaches, administration, and at the end of the day, we care about, I work at Northside, we care about Northside athletics. We care about our students being at Northside because, when I first got to Northside, a lot of our athletes were going to other places, third party, different facilities to train. And it's not even that they're going to, the thing that really bothered me about that stuff was that they weren't going there to necessarily weight train. They were hammering down skill work year round. One that's always bothered me a little bit because they're just not getting any general training or physical training at that. But I like our athletes to go and do those things. When it becomes a priority for me, if you're prioritizing your trainer outside of school over team events, team lifts, team activities, that's when for me that it becomes a problem. We were seeing a lot of that. We don't see a lot of that anymore, but that's, we're not able to build a culture at our school and build the culture around our teams, around the people that you're going to be playing with on Friday nights, stuff like that. And that was the biggest challenge, was getting our guys to understand. It's you can still go do those things, but when it becomes a priority over the coaches here, your teammates, your team here, that's when it becomes an issue. And, I don't have any relationship with any of those third party facilities. I've never heard from them. They're around our guys a lot. There's a lot of things I'm just not going to get into from where I'm at, but I like those things. I went to speed training whenever I was in high school. I went to a trainer outside. It was for speed work though. I was doing a lot of speed work 2 days a week. I was only going 2 days a week. I never missed a team activity, never missed a team event. Everything revolved around the team, and ultimately, that's what I want our guys to understand is that stuff's okay. Definitely go to do that stuff, but remember, you can't build a culture unless you're with your team. So I don't know if I answered that.
That's like two or three prongs on that one. I look at this, and I say this to everyone, kids that come through our doors. So number one, your team workout comes first. This is the extra mile. you have to be on the first mile. If you're not on your team's mile, it really doesn't matter what you're doing the extra mile. I don't care what you do, and your coach doesn't care what you do. So if you're sitting on the bench because you never go to workouts with the team, well, you should know exactly why you're sitting on the bench, because you haven't participated with the team. Don't put yourself in front of the team. Now, when that's said and done, fine. You want to go get extra work? Go get extra work. Now, I will say this. I mean, Lucas, you're highly educated. You've got some good training in your life. There's a lot of high school coaches that really suck.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's why these athletes have to go outside their high school.
Mm-hmm.
One of the local high schools in Columbia, it's called Rockbridge High School. They max out every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's incredibly dangerous and stupid. 1 RMs. We're not talking 5 RMs.
Right.
We're not taking 8 RMs. We're talking 1 RMs every 3 weeks. No one needs to do that shit. That's just fucking stupid. And then you look at these guys. Well, when's the last time you actually trained yourself? Right. I think that's very important for me. It's like, number one, everyone on my coaching staff, number one, you have to compete at least 1 time a year in something. I don't care what it is, but you have to prepare yourself to compete. So you remember what it's like. Yeah, I'm 55 years old, but I've competed all my life. I compete every year. I compete probably half dozen times a year in something. Why? To hone my mind, to be able to harness my body. And when coaches forget how to do that, oh man, just run those kids into the ground and make them puke. Well, you're just an asshole as a coach. It doesn't mean you made them better. I look at it because anyone can make a kid tired. Can you make them better? Can you make them fast? Can you make them resilient to injury? Can you make them stronger? And those are the things I look at. So I think what's tough for you is, like you said, you got to get those kids into the school to participate in culture. And I think that's the most important thing, is culture. Now, a third party, could they be an asset to you? Like, that's the one thing I come in when I talk to all these coaches. Look, I don't want to steal your thunder. I want to give you a bigger stick. Okay. Well, I come in, I can teach sports performance. I can teach speed. Okay. Do you know speed? If you don't know speed, let me do it for you. If you want to know speed, hey, I can help you with that too, because I'll teach you how to do it. We'll get you certified. I'll make you a Parisi certified coach. Because I've got a dozen coaches that I've certified that are high school coaches that are Parisi certified coaches that use our system, that use our software, that use our training, that makes their life easier. I mean, that's the number one thing. I look at, how can I make your life easier? I mean, you're in the school. I mean, you guys, you teach 180 days a year, but it's like, you as a coach, Jesus, I mean, what are you working 320 days a year? You know what I mean? How can I make your life easier? That's from an outside perspective. When I look at a high school strength coach or a high school coach in general, I want to help you to make your kids less likely to get hurt, perform better. You know what? And I get coaches like, well, I do what you do. I'm like, no, you fucking don't. Don't sit here and blow sunshine up your own ass or mine. Okay. Because you don't do what I do. Okay. I've got 2 degrees. I've got 30 certifications, and I've been doing this my entire life. I have dedicated my life to sports performance training and making athletes better. So when you sit here and say, yeah, you're a football coach, you know X's and O's. You don't know strength conditioning like I do. Yeah. And when I was younger, I had a problem. I didn't want to say that. As I've gotten older, I just don't give a shit anymore, because I'll just tell them the way it is. You know what? If you're going to sit here and say you can do what I do, no, you can't. You haven't been where I've been. You don't know what I know, and you have never been around the people I've been around. Yeah. So I don't have an issue saying that. So like coaches like you at high school, like Lucas, if you came to me and said, hey, I need some help, I want to help the high school coach, because it's about helping kids. My job is to edify kids, build kids self-esteem and self-confidence, so that they make better choices. We just do that through training. Now, that culture that you're doing, I mean, where you're at, how you've changed that culture, man, that's freaking awesome, dude. And it only comes by getting those kids in there, and they become part of that team. They become part of that culture. Is there a third party out there that's going to help you? There could be. Maybe reach out and talk to them. Is there a way that you could integrate this? Hey, can you come in and help us? I'll help you. There's always a way to make it a win-win for everyone. Now, at the end of the day, win for you, win for the outside party, and most importantly, win for the kid. Yeah. But I'd take this. If I had to take I'll take 2 wins over 3, and that would be the school and the kid. And I think you're doing it right. You got to pull those kids back in. I'm not opposed to kids going outside. We get a lot of kids that do. Now, a lot of times it just becomes one that I just sit down with the coach. Like, I don't want to steal your thunder. I don't want to hurt your program. I think this kid should be at your program. So I've got kids that they go train at their school, and then they come do the extra mile with me. And, and then what I want to do is I need to look at I contact their coach. tell me what you're doing so we're not overlapping. The number one thing is, like, if they're in there lifting, and I watch these coaches, the lifts at a high school, Jesus, I mean, it just makes me want to pull my hair out.
I believe
It's pretty bad.
It is.
So
It's
now,
real
if you've
bad.
got, like, I mean, again, the high school strength coaches that I know, Brian Neese is high school strength coach at Brownsburg High School. I've known Brian, one of my dear friends, probably one of the best strength coaches I've ever met at the high school level. And he has a great program. Now, would Brian have an issue with kids coming to me? He wouldn't. He wouldn't have a problem with that, but he has a problem with going to other coaches because they're just what are they there for? It's about the money.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. I always said this: if you're in it for the money, there's way better places to make money.
Yeah.
I'm in it to make a difference, and if you do make a true difference and you care for people and you actually love people, the money's going to take care of itself. It always has. It always will.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you can forge relationships with those third-party coaches, I think that's great. What's the old saying? It takes a village to raise a kid. And you're one coach. And now, if you can get the best thing for you, if you can get the rest of the coaches in your school on your page, that's the number one thing. Because then they're all letting you do your job.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you've got Lucas. You've got to do reverse lunges with us. You got to do this. You got to do this. Like, okay, coach, fine. If I need to put that in your kid's program, fine, I'll do that. But let me do my job. Let me do everything else.
Yeah.
So
sorry, go ahead. My bad.
Go ahead.
No, I'm in a great position where all my coaches are completely on board with what I'm doing. It took a long time. It took a minute to get there, and that's part of early on. Whenever I took over, we had no strength and conditioning. It wasn't a priority, and nor was there any education in there at all. So there was really nobody to teach anything properly or really manage anything that was going on there. So it just wasn't used. So a lot of the kids were getting their training outside of Northside. So when I come in, and I'm trying to develop this program early on, it was hard to get any buy-in because I'm the new guy and nobody wants to trust the new guy. And that took years to develop. I was talking to Jim before the show, it's where we're at now compared to where we've got. Like, I was lucky to have maybe 50 athletes a day. That's including the classes training. So,
holy smokes, man.
Now today, we had over 300 athletes throughout the classes, throughout the, after school program, stuff like that. And these are the biggest numbers we've ever had. A lot of that is just from being here for that amount of time, developing that trust, and the coaches buying into everything that we do. Like, our coaches don't, whatever I have them do, they're all for it. They don't really have a lot of concern about what's going on. I have full autonomy over everything that goes on in that weight room. So,
dude, that's awesome.
And we got coaches that are bought into it, and the thing that bothered me for a long time about the third party places to me, it just didn't seem about making kids better as it is marketing and putting a brand out. Anybody can take the guy that's going to the NFL and say, this is what I did, but where did you, what about the athlete? Where did you take the average athlete that needed to develop? What does that athlete look like then, and what's he look like now? That's the stuff that you just don't see, and the things that's kind of bothered me and this is all just, I'm not saying every facility is like that at all, but I've seen some pretty bad stuff when it comes to these other facilities and whatnot. But
the hardest thing is like, they've got a business. They're running a business.
Right.
You're coaching at a high school, and the crazy thing is, you get kids that come in. Here's the thing: if they don't make progress, then the people quit paying. That kid's going to keep coming to your class for 4 years.
Right.
You're going to make the biggest impact in his life. I mean, I always say this. I'm like, if you look at a strength and conditioning coach, I think the strength and conditioning coach spends more time with the kid than his head coach or his position coach. They're going to learn more from you. And I think the strength coach is probably the most important job at any college, pro level, high school, because you're making an impact that lasts forever. If we look at the epidemic of obesity in this country, what if we taught kids to train properly, eat properly at a young age? Where are they going to be in 20 years? They're not going to be a statistic, and you're creating a culture that's bigger than themselves. And that's what kids miss. I mean, that's really what and this whole society misses. We think of everyone thinks of themselves. They don't think about the big picture. What's the big picture? I mean, right now we're watching this political bullshit on both sides of the fence. Like, we're Americans. I want America to be successful. I don't give a shit who's in office. Joe Biden's our president. People, oh, he's not my president. Joe Biden's the United States president. So I hope he's successful. And if Kamala Harris is or Donald Trump is, I don't really give a shit. I need them to be successful for our country. So we keep putting, and then the kids see this in our culture and in their families. Man, what happens just loving the guy next to you? I mean, that's what I always teach with our kids. Like, this is your team. And I call it family. Yeah. You got to love that. Here's the thing. I got to love that person next to me. I might not necessarily like them, but I got to love them because they're family. Okay? And that's what we do. We love that person next to us. Now, here's the thing. When you grow up, you're going to have a job. You might not like the person that works with you. You might not like your boss. Just like you might not like your head coach. You might not like your position coach. You might not like the dude next to you. But discipline allows you to love that person enough to give them what they need while you're on the field together, and when you're training, and when you're outside of the classroom or the field, when you're out together. I think if we taught that more, we'd have a hell of a lot better society. We'd have a lot better teams. But Luke, it sounds to me like you're doing it. I think that's phenomenal. I envy you being able to impact 300 kids a day.
And I tell you what, man, it's I absolutely love where I'm at. Love my job. It's when I first got this job, I was my first semester in. I thought I was going to pull my hair out, and I thought I was going to be I had no shot, but I could probably be here for. If certain circumstances, I probably wouldn't leave. It's a great spot, and how far we've come. We've come farther than I imagined in 4 years. And like I said, it just took a lot of people with the same image, same vision, and we all had a plan. We stuck to it. So
that's awesome. That's just it's really incredible stuff, dude.
You look at like the other thing too is we've got a lot of non-athletes in my training classes. They're made for athletes. They're scheduled for athletes, but there's always non-athletes in there. So, and there's always a part of it that's, there's kind of a life component to it too, is teaching kids that aren't athletes, that have no aspiration for this stuff, but teaching them how to train and teaching them what they can do for after they graduate, whatever it is that they want to do. So they have a little bit of a base when they graduate and be able to, to find out, to have the basics to a healthy life. So they're not necessarily nervous going into a gym. When they get their own gym memberships or whatnot, they can go in there and have a little bit of confidence and a little bit of knowledge about what to do when they're in there too.
That's awesome, because you're setting them up for success for the rest of their life. And I really think that that's the most important thing that any of us can do, is to set these kids up to be successful.
That's the back and forth I was looking for between you two guys on that component. So that's huge. As much as I can, there's so many cross currents, whether it's at your job, your faith, working with kids, coaching, driving to work. There's all these things that put pressure on whatever the moment is. And then for building these kids, because the show's called Athlete Builder, and the reason we had you on, Chad, because I want to find out how you built yourself and how you built others. So just kind of aggregate what I'm witnessing is, one, your mom said, don't be a pussy and just work your ass off and you get your ass beat and just keep going. And then you say you have 30 certs, and I read in your bio that basically you do a cert a year on top of your 2 degrees. You're adding a certification in anything to get better.
Yes.
To get better every year. So if you're tenacious and you're always working, and you're not giving up with through the adversity, and you're adding education where you're a constant reader and a certification every year. What else? And then you to talk about working with people and supporting your team. Well, that's everything right when I break down the athlete's head. Then you start learning about training, nutrition, recovery. That's it. You covered every base. Okay. Is there anything else I'm missing? So when I come to kids and say, build your head and build your body, you just follow Chad's thing where you just don't give up and you just constantly work with people really well and pump in knowledge. I can't come up with anything else. That's gotta be the formula. That's gotta be the basic little equation for success.
It's funny. It's just a quest. I mean, I'm on this quest to make myself the best possible coach I can. And I think there's so many people that you get to this point, and you got this education. Well, I'm done. Well, you're not done. I mean, I look at it, if there's an iceberg of training knowledge, and 10% is floating above the water and 90% is below the water, I'm a few degrees below the water. I mean, I learn something wherever I go. I mean, I'm a master coach for Parisi, and I'm going to do an on-site this weekend. Everyone, what excites you about doing an on-site? I said, some young coach like Lucas is going to say he sees it this way, that I'm so freaking old, I can't see it with those fresh eyes. He sees it, and I learned something new. I mean, to be honest, where all the upgrades in Parisi education come from are generally from younger coaches who saw a different way of doing it. I mean, I was doing a certification. We were working on it's just a top speed mechanic drill. We're doing leg recovery and a fast claw, and this kid just stopped as he released his leg before he ripped and pulled back in his top speed mechanics. He just stopped and like, holy crap! I stopped the whole class. I videoed it. I sent it to all the master coaches on the spot, saying, change this drill to this, because it really just clicked in my head. And it was a young coach, and I literally get that every time I do a certification. And then I look from an educational standpoint. Yeah, I get a cert, at least one cert a year. I hired Nathan Payton, who's a nutrition guru, who's done all the top world strongest man athletes. I hired him for a year to do my nutrition. He's kind of mentoring me right now. I spend money on mentorships. I mean, Joe Ken, who's the two-time, NCAA strength coach of the year and one-time NFL strength coach of the year. That's who does my programming now. And we go back and forth. I mean, I just spent the weekend with Joe and Mark Philippi. I mean, Mark Philippi was the former head strength coach at UNLV, but he has he has the Philippi Sports Institute, but he's also the head coach of Azerbaijan wrestling. He came from Paris to Colorado to help judge the Shaw Classic and the strongest man on earth. I get to hang out with Ed Cohn. I mean, I look at those are just, I mean, and so many other incredible athletes that they're just, you're going to learn something. I think what people, they get siloed into what they believe in, and that's it. I mean, kettlebells are the greatest, barbells are the greatest, high intensity are the greatest. It's like Louis said it best: everything works until it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I look at the conjugate system, where I look at undulating periodization or Western periodization. Here's the thing: everything works. How do you create a system that works all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Or can you?
Right.
I mean, is there a system all the time? Do kids need deloads? I mean, all my athletes go, well, when am I going to deload? I said, well, here's the thing. When I think about deloads, for me, life deloads me. I get sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get too big. Now, personally, this is anal retentive, but since November 1st of 1982, I've missed 27 workouts in my life.
Wow.
Like, I write it down. Like, that's important to me. I missed 27 workouts since 1982.
Yeah.
Or 1980. So you're thinking about, so for 44 years, you've missed 27 workouts. There's people who are 27 workouts a year.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, it's like, people ask me, what's the most important factor? I say consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In everything you do, be consistent. There was John Wooden. I'm a huge John Wooden fan because he's a Purdue grad. But John Wooden he was leaving Purdue. He was going to take a job. He was going to accept a job at Minnesota. I think about this. He was going to accept a job at Minnesota. Well, we're going to call you at 6 o'clock, coach. We're going to play at 6 o'clock. So 6 o'clock came. Minnesota didn't call. UCLA called like at 6:30, which he'd already told him, I'm not taking the job there. I'm going to Minnesota. Well, 6:30 comes around, and UCLA called. He answered the phone. They start talking. He accepted a job at UCLA.
Yeah.
Half an hour later, the phone rang. You got to remember, this is back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, what happened? Well, sorry, coach, there was a snowstorm up here, and the switchboard operator couldn't get there, and we couldn't get your call. And he goes, well, I'm sorry. You said you were calling at, you really said you were calling at 6 o'clock. You didn't call, and I took the job at UCLA. Now, when you think about that,
Wow.
now what happened with UCLA? Wow.
Wow.
That's kind of a wow moment. So I think when I say consistency, I want you to know exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm very predictable. I'm a very predictable person. You know what? I think for you, Lucas, you as a coach, you know what? You give those kids 100%. You know what they'll do for you? They'll give you 100% on the field. They'll give you 100% in the classroom. They'll give you 100% in life. You know, you hold back, and that's exactly what they're going to do. So I think you lead. I was always taught to lead by example. You know, Dave Gentry was a Marine. You lead from the front. He taught me that when I was young, and my dad was very adamant about that as well. So, you know, I just think it's lead from the front, lead by example, you know, and as a player or as a boss, you know, number one, just take care of people and love them.
Yeah.
You know, I talk about people like, oh, you're so, I mean, a lot of people, when they see me, I'm a big guy. They're kind of scared. It's like the kids just walk up to me and hug me. And, you know, I get down on the knee with the little kids. You know, they're 7 years old. You're down on the knee, you know, you just care for them and you love them. And I think when you do that to your kids in high school, you know, in 20 years, they're going to be bringing you their kids. And I kind of laugh because in Kokomo, I had a group of kids that brought me their kids. I trained these kids in the 90s, and then it's 2013, 2014, 2015, and they're bringing me their kids to train them. And, you know,
Impact.
because you've built, they know exactly what they're going to get.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest thing, this transition of where I'm at in my life, no longer coaching on a daily basis. That's probably going to be the hardest thing for me, is because I'm not actively coaching kids. You know, now I'm helping other people learn to coach, helping them make money. I mean, in the private sector, if you're not making money, you're out of business.
That's right.
You know, Jim can understand that. I mean, you got to make money. So I'm here to help teach people how to make money. I'm the same. If I was talking to you, Lucas, I'm going to teach you how to coach. You know, how can we learn to become better coaches? And I think probably the most powerful thing that we work at Parisi is the power of positive coaching. And all that is simple. It's a high five. It's a hug. I mean, I'm a hugger. You know, my kids hug me all the time. My adults hug me all the time. It's like I high five all the time. You know, it's like, it's just, you want to build those kids and make them feel special, because they are.
Yeah.
And you know what? You get those kids in that classroom for 1 hour and you make it the best damn hour of their whole day, because you don't know what they've got at home. You don't know, did they eat? Mom and dad get in a fight? Whatever happens, bad shit happens. But when they come in your classroom and you give them a hug and you say, you know what? I believe in you. I'm proud of you. Those words go so far. And when a kid sees that, there's not a damn thing they won't do for you. And you know what? In 20 years or 30 years from now, when you're getting letters or invitations to weddings, you know, it's really cool shit. And it's like, that's if there's anything I'm going to miss coaching on a day-to-day basis, it's that. Now, with that being said, I'm probably going to find a place around here to coach. So it's just in my blood. So, you know,
that's awesome.
We'll find out.
I love that. So the last piece in my little equation I summed up, you added another component, which is absolutely true, is the consistency. It's not just learning a little bit or being diligent or disciplined a little bit. It's all the time. We had Zach Riley on. He's a Highland Games guy. He's former pro and two-time All-American, only two-time All-American out of Ball State. He was a thrower. And so he's a little bit younger than me. He's like mid-40s. Still throws, and he's a doctor of neurology at IUPUI. And so we had him on. We're talking about nutrition. And he goes, I haven't missed a meal prep Sunday in 14 years. And I'm in my 50s, and I'm not doing this as an All-American anymore. So from age, 38 on, I meal prep every Sunday. 14 years.
That's awesome.
I'm like, that is huge. Oh my God. The consistency. As for education, like, you can see the books behind me, but Lucas and I are spoiled in that every Monday night I get an hour and a half continuing education with somebody. And so today it's Chad Coy, and I'm like, oh man, sit back and just notes everywhere, so I can then just take selfishly his knowledge and experience and then funnel it out to other folks. So having a great time, and really appreciate Chad so much.
No, I appreciate you having me on.
A lot of different ways we can go, and you already covered so much of the stuff. I'm looking out here about, mindset, not being a pussy, and you have D back for your mom, and training kids short term. So going forward, you're coaching coaches and you're coaching the business owners. You're still competing this year. You got something on the docket this year planned at all?
Well, I had arthroscopic surgery 34 days ago. In 2022, I did something to my knee, and I've been fighting around it. Had multiple MRIs. Did our show in July, just gimping around. I called the doctor. Clayton Newell got me in down at Mizzou, and we scoped my knee. He said it'd be about 8 weeks before I could train, balls out again. So on the docket is I want to do 50 plus worlds again. It's just funny because I just got back. Like everyone's like, "Well, what do you do at the Shaw Classic?" Well, I'm a judge, I'm an expediter, and I do this. I said, "Well, do you like it?" And I'm like, "Well, it's stressful as shit, but it's like, but I get to hang out with all my buddies for like 4 days.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
It's like a vacation with all your friends."
Right.
And I was like, when I go to OSG, I get to compete, but I get to hang out with a bunch of dudes I've been competing with for 30 years. I mean, Nick Best, I've competed against Mark Felix and Nick Best and all these great guys. And it's just a way to go hang out. And, I told myself that I would never quit until I win a world championship. Now, I guess I won the USS 50 plus worlds a couple years ago. I don't really count that. Sorry, Willie, if you hear this, sorry. I went to, my goal is to make world's strongest man. In 2001, I was the alternate to the United States. 2012, I was the alternate to Masters Worlds. Brad Dunn couldn't go, so I went and I got second. Fired me up. I trained my ass off the next year. The next year I got second. I got beat by 9 points in 2012, and in 2013 I got beat by 2 points. Trained my ass off again. 2014, picked up some injuries, got back from Worlds, got a divorce. Kind of wrecked. I was pretty wrecked there for a while. Competed 2015, Van went, got second. So an American got second in 12, 13, and 14. I'm like, damn, dude, we got to find a way of making it. Somebody's got to win this shit. Went back in 16, went back in 17. Lynn had OSG. I was going to do OSG, a ration of injuries, so just to fight through them. But I competed every year. I've done like 124 contests in strongman, and then
including
21.
We're at the couple of my contests. You brought a whole team.
What's that?
You brought a whole team to my contest, and it's just a small little show. And
just fun. I like having fun. Yeah. I just like hanging out. In 2021, we did the Shaw Classic in Estes. I got COVID really bad. I lost 27 pounds in 9 days and decided to pull out of the first ever, 50 plus worlds. Now, if I'd have been healthy, I really feel good. I could have won that. Mike Saunders beat me in 2013, and Mike Saunders won in 2021. I really wish I get a chance to compete against Mikey again, but that didn't happen. So in 22, I went to Worlds. I got 6th place. I'm happy with it. I sustained a few injuries, got nicked up, but I was 6th in the world. 20, I was supposed to go last year, but business came up. I had to work, so I didn't go. So this year the plan is to go if I can get healthy. That's the thing. If I can get healthy, that's always the thing. Healthy is the long-term goal. So, but I told I'm going to hold out till the 60 plus class, and I'm going to give Mark Felix and Nick Best some X-Lax brownies so they shit themselves so I can win.
There you have it.
That's the plan. So I don't know. I still enjoy competing. No, let's take that back. I really don't enjoy competing. I enjoy preparation. I enjoy the preparation. I laugh because today was the first time I've squatted since July 1st. I squatted 100 kilos for 10 reps. For 3 sets of 10, I built up to that. And my knee didn't hurt, and it felt good. And, so I have hope that I'm going to rehab this. I'm going to be able to come back and train. I did tell Nick Best that I was going to beat him in the log press, so I got to get there so I can beat Nick in the log press. So I told him last year, I said, when we did the Viking press, I said, I'm going to whip your ass in the Viking press and the dumbbell. He goes, no, you're not. And I beat him in both. So I was like, I got to. We're real good friends, and some of the camaraderie and just the japing back and forth is just fun, you know. So that's the plan, is to do the official Strongman Games Masters World Strongest Man 50 plus class in December.
There you go.
We'll see if I can pull it together.
When you're dealing with those legends like Brian Shaw, and you said Magnus or Kazmaier, is there all the public sees is what's on YouTube or TV, wide world of sports sometimes, or now even ESPN a little bit, or even the History Channel with that series that Shaw led. Is there like a moment or a couple things where you're like, bro, you will not believe what I saw this guy lift, or I saw this guy do? I remember back then I would watch World Strongest Man on TV, and Franco Colombo, this little dude, is competing for some reason, and he's walking carrying his car, and his whole leg gives out, and blasts his knee right there in the middle of it. And I see people carrying like refrigerators on their back. But other than like what you see on TV, is there any moment where you're like, dude, you will not believe it. Yeah, strong is strong, but this guy did this? You got any story like that for us?
You know what? I will say this. Phil Pfister. Where the hell we were at? We were in Ohio. I'm trying to think about this. Ohio. We were in Ohio. It wasn't Jim Davis. It was this other. I can't remember Jim's last name. He was a professor at the University of Ohio, and he was helping Jim Davis at the time put on shows. And Phil and they were our stones. So there's this 405-pound stone, which was at the time, 2002, it was the heaviest stone ever loaded. He laughs it, squats down, literally falls back, holds the ball with one hand, puts his hand on the ground like a kickstand, pushes himself back up, and loads the stone. That was incredible. Just watching it was just like, that 2001, we were in the Dominican Republic. I don't know if you remember Chad Smith.
Yeah, Chad Smith.
They called it, he's from Texas. He played at Texas Tech. But he's literally he was as wide as he was tall. I mean, the dude was like 400 pounds. He's like 6 foot, 400 pounds. We were in the Dominican, and they had made 2 cars. But they had made 2 like VW bugs to carry car walk. And it was close to 1,000 pounds, but one was a little heavier than the other. So they put us all in the same one. It's 100 feet. He literally, I don't think he could have ran with no car on his back any faster than he did carrying the car on his back. And at the time, Sven Carlson had the world record at yoke walk, and he beat Sven Carlson by 15 seconds. So that was just, to me, that was amazing. I've got to train with Magnus. I've got to train with Brian. I mean, just everyone's asked, like, what are they? I mean, they're just normal dudes. They're just really good at what they do. And I think that's the cool thing. Like Brian, he loves the sport, and he's just a good dude. And Magnus loves the sport, and he's just a good dude.
That's awesome.
I've met so many cool people through this sport that, I don't know. I think that's what keeps me coming back. Like, I want to see the sport grow. I want to see the sport continue to get better. And like, as much as people complain about how shitty it is, I'm like, dude, we were doing shows in parking lots. Now they're doing them in stadiums. America's Strongest Man had a $10,000 prize package. Hell, Dion had $25,000 for the winner last year, for the men and the women. Brian Shaw just gave away $263,000 between the Shaw Classic and the Strongest Man on Earth. I mean, the sport is getting better. Look what Rogue's doing in November. I mean, the men and the women get the same prize package. So it's just exciting to see where the sport's going, and know that, in the last 30 years, I've been kind of part of it.
For sure.
I mean, it's kind of cool to watch the sport grow.
All right, guys, listen, a few quick ones at the end here. What do you listen to when you train, if anything?
I laugh. If I'm training by myself, he's music. John Mellencamp, Bruce Springsteen, shit from like when I was a kid, because it's like, it just kind of transports me back to, I don't know, a better time. I mean, really, man, so you get down to it.
What's a place you haven't been to yet, or something you haven't done, or an adventure you haven't done yet that you'd like to do still?
I need to go to Australia. I've been to every continent but Australia and Antarctica. So, I've gotten blessed to compete most of them. So I just want to go to Australia, just hang out and see it. Maybe go to New Zealand. I've got clients in New Zealand, so maybe go visit those guys. And then I'd like to go to Iceland. Magnus has invited me for the last 20 years, but I just never did it. I just want to go. What's funny is my kid's gone there. My dad's gone there. I mean, Magnus is such a cool dude that he took my dad to lunch. Like he drove to meet my dad and took him to lunch. I mean, when people go, what kind of guys? I said, that's a good guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't know my dad,
Right.
but he met my father.
That's awesome.
And hung out with him. So I thought that was cool.
You got a favorite sports movie?
Everybody's All-American. It's old.
Is that
old football?
Is that the guy that played for Texas?
No.
That had cancer? Lung cancer?
No, that's another good one too. I really like that one. This was with Dennis Quaid.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's real old. He was a running back for the Broncos.
Okay. Favorite sport to watch?
Oh, football for sure.
Favorite athlete to watch?
In football or in any
sport?
Any of mine.
Okay.
I literally, dude, I got one of my kids. His name's Andy Cialini. He tried out for the bobsled team, and he sends me videos of him doing. He's at Lake Placid on the skeleton. I mean, this kid. I've trained this kid since he was for the last 6 years, and he at his combine he ran a 4.45 laser time 40, 36.7 inch vertical, 9.11 broad jump. And he went there and he sends me the stuff. I love watching him. I just love watching any of the kids we train. I mean, dude, I won't watch football on Sunday, but if I got a kid playing on a field, I want to go watch it.
Love it.
I mean, that's my favorite athletes to watch are the ones I train. Just love them.
Any a book or two that you like more than others?
What genre?
It could be, fantasy like when you were a kid, or a business book, or an autobiography, or whatever.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Patton, so his biography was pretty cool. Favorite book? If I had to pick one that I read every year, the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. It's a post-apocalyptic, kind of nightish. I mean, so it has the flavor of it is Roland is the main character, and it's funny because that's what I named my CrossFit box. Was called Quartet. So Ka meaning family. I mean Quartet meaning family. Really, Ka is fate. Tet is the group. A group bound together by fate. Which the joke was we tried 300 different names before we got a goddamn name for CrossFit in Kokomo, and I jokingly put in Quartet if Ka allows it, it will be, and they approved it. So I mean, Quartet to me is like I look as Roland, the main character, the last gunslinger. I kind of look at it. It's funny because we used to have a book. We all trained, but everyone had to read the book. So if you didn't read the book, you couldn't have conversations. So it used to be jokingly that was our book club. And so we trained, but it was a book club. We talked about the gunslinger. So I think that's just an incredible set of books. I mean, there's just so many different books I've read, but I read that one once a year.
All right. I got it written down.
But that one, and believe it or not, and I know I do profane a lot, I read the Bible too. So the Bible and the Dark Tower.
Well, since you mentioned the Bible, I was just finishing up Genesis again, and I was like, the story of Joseph, where his brothers shit all over him, dump him in a hole, they sell him into slavery, and he comes back and saves everybody, saves Egyptians, saves Israelites, saves his brothers, and he wanted this other path and ended up in a completely different path that he didn't see, kind of like you and me in coaching people, because this isn't what we wanted to be athletes, but it didn't really happen. Went with this different path and then made a huge impact. And the part that my wife pointed out was he was amazing at forgiveness. That's a part that I struggle with, and so I work on that and try to emulate what I learned in that piece. And I just went through that a couple of weeks ago. So when you mentioned the Bible, I'm like, I bet he might like Joseph or identify with Joseph a little bit.
A lot of identification there.
Whether it's a comic book or a movie or a book in general or a personal, do you have a favorite superhero or villain?
Captain America.
All right. And then on the
villain, Frank Castle is an anti-hero, but people will call him a villain. So, I mean, it's kind of bad. The Punisher and Captain America,
Right.
Go figure.
I
I
like that.
don't know. I mean, I find both compelling. Now, what's funny is like I played a lot of. I mean, you're gonna laugh. I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. So one time, Mary and I were driving back from some show, and we were talking about. She's like, we were talking about there's in the board game. It's called alignment. What is your alignment? There's good, there's evil, there's neutral. And she goes, you know what you are? You're lawful good. She goes, if the apocalypse came today, you would be worried about trying to save everyone else. She goes, where she would be, she's like chaotic neutral. She's like, I don't give a shit. She says, you, me, that's all I care about. You're lawful good, man. He goes, you can't not help people. Like she's like, why do you give money to beggars on the street? I said, because Jesus told us.
That's right.
It's just that $5 is going to mean a lot to him. It doesn't really mean that much to me,
Right.
Or like just but lawful. I laugh because lawful good. I mean, I look at my life and have I made mistakes? Do I do silly stuff sometimes? Yes, we're all sinners, but in the end, I always lean towards the good side.
You have a favorite lift? One lift.
Squat, man. I love squatting.
All right. Yeah, I want to quote.
My goal, I've squatted 700 pounds every year of my life, okay, for the last 32 years. So I got to get myself back in shape so I can squat 700 again this year. That's the goal. It's always the goal. Keep that 700-pound squat as long as I can. Like to keep it till I'm 60. I think that'd be pretty cool.
You have a favorite strongman lift?
I don't know. Not anymore. They all hurt.
Sure.
They all just hurt, man. So I don't know.
All right.
I mean, any more strongman lifts? Circus dumbbell. I'm still pretty decent at circus dumbbell because I can do it with both arms. I'm ambidextrous.
How about a quote?
How about a quote?
Favorite quote?
Man in the arena is my favorite. I've got that in my office. I can't quote it to you.
Sure. That's the most. That's the most common one.
My favorite quote that I quote to kids is like, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you might as well not even show up. That's a Vince Lombardi, and I'm a huge Vince Lombardi fan. And it's great because it's funny because the Gillingham. So I've got Gail was the father of Brad and Carl and Wade. So I've got to spend a lot of time with Gail, and he played for him. So we had some really cool stories there. So
that's awesome.
Enjoyed that.
I know we can find Parisi at parisischool.com. Any other places where we can find you, Chad?
I'm really simple. My Instagram is Chad Coy and Facebook's Chad Coy. I don't have any cool handles or anything, so I'm just kind of vanilla.
Gotcha. Well, Chad, it's been great to have you on the show. For those that still want to reach out and connect with us, send us an email at info@athlete-builder.com. Be on the lookout for this episode, and our book launches. The Athlete Builder book launches September 30th. So a lot of good things happening there. Chad, great having you on. Like I said before we even started, I'm just really looking forward to today. And you did at this point learn a lot of great things and great insights. And that's what happens when you're 55. You go through enough shit, then you can say, "Hey, I know some things," and you definitely did, and you impacted all of us. So I'm really thankful. I had a great time with you, man. Chad, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Lucas, I wish you all the luck in the world. If there's anything I can do to help you, just let me know.
Absolutely. I'll probably reach out. Actually.
Yeah. I
could probably get better at some speed stuff.
Crazy thing is we do this thing called a certification. So
I've been thinking about that the whole podcast. You might hear from me.
Yeah, just hey, shoot me a message or an email, and I'll be glad to get on the phone with you.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Till next time.